Forget the narrative you've been told. The textbooks say the American story began in the north, but the evidence in the south proves them wrong. I'm your host, Super Gringo, and you're watching Ancient American Explorer. It is time to stop reciting the old narrative. For decades, we were told the first Americans marched across a frozen Bering Land bridge, following a narrow ice-free corridor. But the science has shifted. Core samples and paleo-environmental data now indicate that the interior of the continent was a frozen wasteland, while the coast was surprisingly accessible. Evidence suggests there wasn't nearly as much ice as previously believed along the Pacific Rim. The real shock to the system is Monte Verde. Located in the southern cone of Chile, Monte Verde I and II provide a factual anchor that completely upends the timeline. Radiocarbon dating places humans here at least 14,500 years ago, long before the northern ice sheets even began to melt. This isn't just a site, it's an indication that the first Americans entered the southern cone directly, whether by choice or by accident. They didn't meander through a continent of ice, they moved with purpose. The Humboldt Current acted as a coastal highway, a high-speed conveyor belt that brought maritime groups straight into the heart of the South. These weren't land hunters chasing mammoths, they were seafaring pioneers who recognized the ocean as their greatest resource. The journey didn't start in the north and end in the south. For many, the southern cone was the beginning. The story gets even more complex. Genetic studies have revealed a stunning anomaly. Austronesian DNA signatures in certain South American groups that are entirely absent in North American populations. This population, Y, signal connects ancient Amazonians and Southern Cone groups to Australasian and Melanesian lineages. This DNA differs fundamentally from the northern migratory pulses, suggesting a distinct trans-Pacific arrival that bypassed the land bridge entirely. Once these groups hit the southern tip, the geography of the continent dictated their survival. We see a clear pivot in the migration pattern. Groups arrived from the extreme south and hit the massive barrier of the Andes. This forced a split. One lineage moved along the western shores, clinging to the rich marine resources of the Pacific. The other filtered eastward into the Pampas and the Atlantic coast. While groups like the Chonon and the Yamana appear much later in the archaeological record, they are a perfect living example of this maritime legacy. They represent the final evolution of those who mastered the southern fjords and channels. They show us how humans didn't just survive at the end of the world, they thrived by moving through the gaps in the mountains, effectively colonizing both sides of the continental divide from the bottom up. To understand the history of this region, you have to realize that Chile is, and always has been, an island. It is bounded by the impassable Andes to the east, the vast Pacific to the west, and the frozen Antarctic waters to the south. But the most significant barrier was to the north, the Atacama Desert. For millennia, the hyper-arid core of the Atacama created a period of total isolation. While the rest of the continent saw waves of migration and cultural exchange, the groups in the southern cone were locked in. They didn't pass through the Atacama, they were shielded by it. This isolation allowed for the development of unique genetic markers and cultural practices that were never diluted by northern influences. The desert wasn't just a wasteland, it was a war. This geographic island status is why the Southern Cone remains one of the most mysterious and scientifically significant regions for understanding the peopling of the Americas. When you look at the DNA and the tools of these southern groups, you aren't looking at a footnote of the Bering Strait story. You're looking at a completely independent chapter of human exploration. The evidence is clear. The road to the Americas didn't just lead south. It started there. If Monte Verde II shattered the Clovis First paradigm, Monte Verde I threatens to burn the entire book. While the upper layer is widely accepted, beneath it, buried under a meter of sediment, lies an older, more elusive level of history. In this deeper stratum, researchers uncovered 3 small, shallow clay-lined lenses containing ash and isolated charcoal fragments. These aren't just natural occurrences. They appear to be the remnants of intentionally built clay halves, preserved in a compact gray sand deposit. The context is undeniable. These features were found alongside 26 stones, at least 6 of which show unmistakable signs of human modification, including a basalt core tool and percussion-struck flakes. The radiocarbon dating of this charcoal returned dates that seem impossible under the current model, 33,000 years before the present. This isn't just a minor adjustment to the timeline, it is a complete reset. Critics argue that the charcoal could be natural, or the stones shaped by geological forces, yet the presence of clay braziers and the direct association with work basalt suggests a level of human agency that nature cannot easily replicate. One stone even showed traces of organic residue, possibly from a proboscidean, linking human activity to the megafauna of the deep past. Monte Verde I forces us to confront an uncomfortable possibility, that humans have been in the southern cone for over 30 millennia. The evidence for trans-Pacific contact is no longer just a theory, it is etched into the bone and the soil. On Mocha Island, just off the Chilean coast, researchers discovered human crania with undeniable Polynesian traits, pentagonal shapes and rocker jaws, dating back to the pre-Columbian era. This matches the startling discovery of chicken bones carrying Polynesian DNA, dated to the 1300s. These visitors didn't just land, they integrated. Modern Mapuche groups carry genetic traces and cultural roots that echo this specific exchange. These links suggest a sophisticated maritime interaction, long before the first European sails appeared on the horizon. But the most provocative evidence lies in the language. We see striking cognates between Mapudungun and Polynesian dialects. Words like toki for axe, kuri for black. Even more staggering is the potential link to the Malagasy language of Madagascar. There are root words in the southern cone that mirror those found across the Indian Ocean, hinting at a vast Austronesian highway. This maritime corridor likely stretched from Madagascar through Indonesia and Australia, hitching a ride on the Humboldt Current to reach the Chilean coast. It implies that the Pacific wasn't a barrier, but a high-speed conveyor belt for a seafaring culture that spanned half the globe. As we look at the coastal anchors of Tunken and Chiloé, the physical evidence of this synthesis becomes undeniable. Tunken, situated north of Mocha Island, serves as a critical geographic marker, as there are also rocker jaws and other mini-moai-like statues that have been documented. This suggests that the maritime influence wasn't restricted to the deep south, it reached significantly up the coast. Moving toward the archipelago of Chiloé, the geography, a labyrinth of fjords and islands, demanded the same maritime engineering found in the heart of Polynesia. The Mapuche Riliche groups of these regions utilized sewn plank canoes, a specific naval technology that allowed them to navigate treacherous waters with a mastery land-based groups couldn't dream of. The linguistic ties here are dense. Even the Mapuche word for ship, tami, echoes Polynesian roots for worked wood and seafaring vessels. This geographic island status of Chile, blocked by the Atacama to the north and the Andes to the east, made it the perfect sanctuary for these ancient traditions to survive. While the rest of the continent underwent massive shifts, the southern cone remained a bastion for this maritime legacy. The Southern Cone wasn't just a place where people arrived. It was a hub of a vast trans-Pacific network. The evidence is clear. The greatest navigators in human history didn't just stumble upon the Americas. They claimed them. The evidence we have laid out, from the 33,000-year-old hearths of Monte Verde I to the genetic and linguistic signatures of the Polynesian and Malagasy travelers, demands a total recalibration of our history. We have to move past the narrow, ice-bound corridor of the North. The Americas were not a cul-de-sac reached by a single group of land hunters. They were the destination of the world's greatest maritime navigators. The Southern Cone wasn't the end of a long march. It was a primary gateway. By recognizing the island of Chile and the Trans-Pacific Highway, we acknowledge a human story that is far more complex, resilient, and ancient than the narrative we've been sold. The physical markers, the rocker jaws in Tunken, the shared vocabulary of the oceans, are the receipts of a global exchange that ignored continental barriers. For Super Gringo, the mission is clear. We look at the facts as they exist in the ground, not as they are written in the outdated textbooks. The truth of the first Americans isn't found in a frozen northern myth. It is found here, in the South, etched into the coastlines and the DNA of the people who mastered the sea. The map of human history has changed. It's time we start reading it from the bottom up. Until next time, this is Super Gringo, and you're watching Ancient American Explorers.